Welcome back to Simply Listen. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. My name is Zoya. I am 22 years old. I live with my older sister, Amara. My parents passed away in a house fire when I was 11 years old. Amara was 19 then. She could have left me with our relatives. She could have continued her own life without the weight of raising a child. Instead, she took me in. She raised me. She became my mother in every way that mattered. Amara is brilliant. She works as an architect at a well-known firm in the city. She built her own success from nothing, the same way she rebuilt our small broken family from nothing. 3 years ago, she married a man named Farid. He is a cardiologist, well-spoken, well-respected. Patients adore him. Colleagues praise him constantly. He has a calm, gentle voice that never seems to rise, even when he disagrees with something. Everyone said Amara had found the perfect husband. I wanted to believe that too. But something inside me never fully settled around him. It started small. A look that lingered a second too long. A compliment about my appearance that felt slightly out of place coming from my sister's husband. I told myself I was imagining things. Grief does strange things to trust sometimes, I reasoned. Perhaps I simply was not used to sharing my sister with anyone else after so many years of it being just the two of us. Then the messages began. I was studying for my final exams one evening when my phone buzzed. A message from Farid. You looked stunning at dinner tonight. I couldn't stop looking at you. I stared at the screen, certain there had been some mistake. Perhaps it was meant for Amara. I did not reply. More messages followed over the next several days. Meet me for coffee. Just us. I need to tell you something. I know you feel it too, Zoya. The way you look at me sometimes. My hands trembled every time my phone lit up with his name. I told no one. I simply stopped replying, hoping the silence itself would be answer enough. It was not. He began waiting for me outside my university lecture hall, always with some excuse. He was in the area. He wanted to check on me. He had a gift for Amara he wanted my opinion on. One afternoon, he blocked my path near the parking lot. You do not have to pretend around me, he said quietly, stepping closer than I was comfortable with. I see how special you are. I think about you constantly. Please stop, I said, my voice shaking. You are married to my sister. That does not change what I feel, he replied, completely unbothered. Some things are simply meant to happen, Zoya. I pushed past him and ran to my car. I sat there for nearly an hour before I could calm down enough to drive home. I decided, finally, that I needed to tell Amara everything. I rehearsed the words in my head 100 times on the drive to her house. I practiced staying calm, staying clear, giving her the facts without falling apart. But when I arrived, She opened the door with tears of joy already streaming down her face. "Zoya," she said, pulling me into a tight hug before I could say a single word. "We just got the results. The fertility treatment worked. I am finally pregnant. After 2 years of trying, it finally worked." My mouth went completely dry. She was glowing, genuinely, completely happy for the first time in months. She had wanted this baby so desperately. She had cried after every failed attempt, every disappointment, every difficult appointment. I looked at her joyful face, and I could not do it. I could not be the one to shatter this moment. So I smiled. I hugged her back. And I swallowed everything I had come there to say. I carried that secret alone for weeks after that, telling myself I was protecting her, protecting the baby, protecting the fragile happiness she finally had. Then, late one evening, there was a knock at my apartment door. It was Farid. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, refusing to let him inside. "I came because I cannot stop thinking about you," he said, stepping forward anyway, forcing his way past me into my small living room. "Amara is resting. She does not need to know I am here. Get out," I said, my voice rising. "Get out right now." He reached for my arm. I pulled away sharply and grabbed my phone from the table. "I will call the police," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I mean it. Leave now." Something in my tone finally frightened him. He held up his hands and backed toward the door. "You are overreacting," he muttered, though his confidence had clearly cracked. "Fine. I am leaving." He left. I locked the door immediately and sank to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. I knew, without any doubt now, that I could not stay silent any longer. Pregnant or not, Amara deserved to know the truth about the man sharing her home, and soon, raising her child. The next morning, I went to her house again. "Amara," I said, sitting across from her, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I need to tell you something important. Please just listen until I finish." I told her everything. The messages, the parking lot, last night, him forcing his way into my apartment. Her face changed slowly as I spoke, moving from confusion to something colder, harder. "Stop," she said sharply, standing up. "Stop it right now, Zoya. I am telling you the truth," I said, my voice breaking. "You are jealous," she said, her eyes filling with furious tears. "You have always wanted attention. Now that I am finally happy, finally pregnant, you want to ruin this for me?" "That is not what this is," I said desperately. "Get out of my house," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "I do not want to see you until you are ready to apologize for these lies." I left that house feeling like something inside me had cracked permanently. Word spread quickly after that. Farid, it seemed, had gotten to certain people before I even had the chance to explain myself. My closest friend Yara called me 2 days later, her voice cold and clipped. "Amara told me everything," she said. "How could you do this to her? While she is pregnant, Zoya. How could you try to seduce her husband?" "That is not what happened," I said, my voice breaking. "He came after me. I never." She hung up before I could finish. I was completely alone. Nobody believed me. Not my sister. Not my closest friend. Nobody. I stopped attending classes for nearly a week. I barely ate. I lay in bed replaying every interaction, wondering if somehow I had imagined the entire thing, wondering if I truly was the villain everyone now believed me to be. But somewhere underneath the exhaustion and the doubt, I knew the truth. I had lived it. I had felt the fear in that parking lot, in my own locked apartment. That much, at least, I could not unknow. One night, unable to sleep, I finally sat up and made a decision. I was done staying silent simply to protect other people's comfort. I gathered everything. Every message Farid had ever sent me, screenshotted carefully with timestamps intact. I wrote a detailed account of every incident. The parking lot, the flowers he had once left on my car with no note attached, the night he forced his way into my apartment. The next morning, I went to the university's counseling and safety office, since some of the harassment had occurred on campus grounds. I laid everything out for the staff member who met with me. She read through it slowly, her expression growing serious. "This is very concerning," she finally said. "We will need to look into this properly, and given some of what you've described happened off campus as well, I would also recommend speaking to the police about a formal complaint." 2 days later, they contacted me. They believed me. They had cross-referenced the timestamps, verified the messages had genuinely come from his number, and taken my detailed account seriously. They also, at my request, reached out to Amara directly, since she deserved to hear the full truth from an official source rather than only from me. Amara called me that same evening. Her voice sounded hollow, exhausted. "They showed me everything," she said quietly. "The messages, the dates. I checked his phone myself after they called. I found messages I had somehow overlooked before, messages I did not want to see." She began crying softly on the other end of the line. "I am so sorry, Zoya. I chose to believe him over you. My own sister. I was so afraid of losing what I finally had that I could not see what was right in front of me. I understand why it was hard to believe," I said softly, though my own eyes were filling with tears now too. "No," she said firmly. "There is no excuse. You are my sister. You are the person I raised, the person I promised our parents I would always protect. And I let you down completely." 3 weeks later, Amara filed for divorce. She stood across from Farid in the small mediation room, 7 months pregnant, her hands resting protectively over her stomach. "You try to destroy the one relationship I've left from my entire childhood," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "I will never forgive you for that. And I will make certain our child never has to call you anything more than a name on a birth certificate." Farid said nothing. He simply stared at the floor, unable to meet either of our eyes. Amara's daughter was born 2 months later. A healthy, beautiful girl with her mother's determined eyes. She named her Zara. "After you," Amara told me one evening, holding her newborn daughter close. "Because you were braver than I was. You told the truth even when nobody believed you. I want my daughter to grow up with that kind of courage in her name." We sat together that evening, the 3 of us, rebuilding something that had nearly broken completely. Sometimes, the people we trust the most can hurt us in ways we never expect. Sometimes the truth feels impossible to speak, especially when speaking it might shatter someone else's happiness. But silence protects no one in the end. Not truly. If you are carrying a truth you are afraid to speak, I want you to know this. You are not weak for feeling afraid. But you are also not required to disappear into silence to keep someone else comfortable. The truth has a way of surfacing eventually. When it does, you deserve to have already spoken it yourself, on your own terms, rather than waiting for it to be dragged into the light by someone else. Speak, even when your voice shakes. Even when you fear no one will believe you. One day they will. If this story touched you, please like this video and share it with someone who might need the courage to speak their own truth. Comment below. What would you have done in Zoya's place? And don't forget to subscribe to Simply Listen for more stories like this one every week.